Hey, Ryan Witt here, defense attorney in Western Washington. People, when they go through the criminal process, at some point or other, maybe it's their case, maybe it's somebody else's, they're going to hear the term dismissal. And people, when they hear that, they think it's immediately time to go into celebration mode, like, woohoo, my case is over. And in some cases, that's correct, that could be accurate, but you got to define the word dismissal. It's a word that requires a qualifier, because a case can be dismissed with prejudice, or it can be dismissed without prejudice. And those are vastly different outcomes of your case. So let's start with prejudice. That essentially means the case is over. I mean, that really is reason to celebrate, because it means the state, the government, can't bring the case up again against you. It is permanently barred from further prosecution. So reasons that could be, it would have to be an error of some constitutional magnitude, like let's say the case went beyond your speedy trial rights and it could no longer go forward. Or let's say the state or the court deems that the evidence is of such a poor quality and it couldn't be rehabilitated later, that that the state just wouldn't be able to meet its burden of convincing a judge or jury beyond a reasonable doubt that they could prove the elements. If they don't think that they can ever rehabilitate that, that's another reason for dismissal with prejudice, meaning it can't be refiled. So let's overlay that and look at it against the dismissal without prejudice. Big difference here, because a dismissal without prejudice means that the matter can be refiled against you. It just has to be refiled inside of a certain timeline, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But basically, reasons a case would be dismissed without prejudice is, let's say it's started, but right away the government, the prosecutor, believes that they don't have the evidence to prove it. So what they'll do is they'll dismiss it without prejudice rather than burn through and use up all of their speedy trial time. So an example for that, and this is very common, let's say a person is pulled over for DUI. The portable breath test sample is very low or non-existent for alcohol, but the officer thinks the person is impaired. So what they'll do is they'll see if a person will consent to blood, or they'll get a warrant for blood, and the blood result will be sent off to the crime lab for analysis. And that can take a year, it can take 18 months. I mean, it takes a long time. So what happens is, like I mentioned, the state will dismiss the case and wait for the blood result to come back from the toxicologist, and then they will refile it. And it just has to be refiled inside of the statute of limitations. And statute of limitations is a big topic in and of itself, which requires a lot of analysis and description. So I'll probably leave a video about statute of limitations right about here. So if you're interested in reviewing statute of limitations, look at that one. But yeah, that's how it can be refiled inside of that time frame. Another reason would be, let's say the evidence is weak at the beginning, but the prosecutor believes that it could justifiably, like they could rehabilitate it. Like maybe evidence isn't available at the moment, but it could be later, or a witness isn't cooperative at the beginning of the case, but they could be later. Maybe evidence isn't like technologically available to be discovered at that time, but they believe there will be advancements to where within inside of the speedy or the statute of limitations they could have access to that evidence. So that'd be a reason why it would be dismissed without prejudice and then refiled. And again, it has to be refiled inside of the statute of limitations. So a dismissal usually, yeah, it is cause for celebration. The case isn't going against you in the immediate. If it's dismissed with prejudice, you're done. That is time to go buy the lottery ticket. If it's without, it's still usually good. A lot of times these cases don't come back. It's probably a small percentage that are refiled that have been dismissed without prejudice. So it's still, it's time to. You really have to cross your fingers for the next year or 2 years or 3 years or however long the statute of limitations is. But there's always hope. So hopefully this answers your questions about the dismissal with versus without prejudice. If you found this helpful, we always appreciate a like and a subscribe. If you can think of other questions pertaining your case or something to do with dismissals, go ahead and drop it in the comments. We'll do our best to answer it there. If it's something that people frequently ask, we'll just do another video answering that question for you. So please go ahead and like and subscribe, and thank you for watching.